Welcome to Answers in First Enoch, episode 19. Today we are going to tackle one of the largest criticisms of part of this book, the supposed missing section of First Enoch. Is this true? Is it real? Again, First Enoch is broken into 5 sections, or some would call books, but that becomes a little confusing because there is a first book of Enoch, which is what we're looking at, with 5 sections, and that vets as Scripture. However, there are occult editions, a second, third, fourth, and fifth Enoch, different books completely, and basically they are extremely blatant and occult accounts, and neither found, even one fragment, in Qumran. Because, well, essentially they are not Scripture, but we are going to get there. Those have no historicity, and we'll cover that in time. However, let's deal with First Enoch. There is the Book of the Watchers. The second section is the Book of Parables. The astronomical book is the third. The fourth is the Book of Dream Visions. And the fifth, the Epistle of Enoch. Those are the 5 sections of Enoch. Now, we will cover all of First Enoch. We will cover all of these, but basically throughout the series. But fragments from sections 1, 3, 4, and 5, so 4 of the 5, just 2 is missing, were all found in Qumran, affirming the Ethiopic edition principally. I mean, most of us who can, think, see that as 80% affirmation in fragments, pretty well affirming the entire Ethiopic preservation of First Enoch. I mean, isn't that what most would say? But not a dunderhead scholar. No, they claim that since the second section was not found in Qumran, we must throw it out. The real reason? We're going to get to that. This is where Enoch meets Messiah in heaven before the flood. That's why. These are not honest men. They do not wish that to be recognized. Let's be clear. Bear in mind, most of the texts of the Bible canon found in Qumran were also not 100%, and many less even than 80%. And Enoch was the third most, First Enoch, the third most abundant scrolls in all of Qumran. So, pretty good. There are some completely preserved books, such as Psalm and Isaiah. A whole scroll, 26 foot long, in fact, one of them. Those are complete. However, very few were. Most are in fragments, completely fragmented. However, what a hypocrite. Double standard for these scholars to overlook that and yet attack First Enoch, attempting to remove an entire section they would never do with a Bible canon book, not their Pharisee canon, which they protect, of course. However, is the second section even missing in that time at all? Or is this just another hollow criticism from scholars who don't know how to research? There's no other way to say this. This criticism is utterly uneducated. If these scholars could only read. Anyway, it's time to test this criticism from a scholarly community who loves to level such, but proves incapable of testing their own criticism, creating a paradigm of stupid. Let's call it what it is. See, they just leave it out there as a stumbling block, but basically, that scholar of this original illiterate thought is a Pharisee agitator, not a legitimate, sincere Bible scholar. You can't be and think this way. Oh, you can level something. That's not a problem. But you need to prove it out or you're irresponsible. That's the way that it actually should work. In this case, we will prove that this dunderhead or those dunderheads, whichever, who leveled this criticism, but were too illiterate to even read the book of Enoch, to find that, it endorses its own book of parables, the second section. Thus, it's not missing. Duh, dunderhead. Again, these are not scholars. Let's be clear. Let's go down the rabbit hole once again to Pharisee land, where everything is backwards, because that's where this claim comes from, and we will prove it. Yes, this is a long introduction, but now we get into it. First, let's look at one version of this claim that part of Enoch was missing in Qumran from Giza Vermes. The complete Dead Sea Scrolls in English, originally published in the 50s, updated in recent years. Now, reread the actual translations here of the actual texts from this book. His commentary, however, frankly, is lousy on many levels, including assuming that these were Essenes. We've discussed that before. When they call themselves the exiled temple priests, the sons of Zadok, Aaron, Levi, about 100 times. In Essenes, well, not once. Talk about illiterate. Then archaeology of the Essene headquarters was found 25 miles south, where, well, no Dead Sea Scrolls are even found. So it's not even a community associated with the one in Qumran. And Pliny, the ancient geographer, actually placed them there in the mountains above Ein Gedi, right where the archaeological find termed the Essene find was found. Now, if someone is supposedly a scholar and they say Essenes lived in Qumran, they're either liars or they're absolutely clueless and they have no idea what they're talking about. They haven't even read the Dead Sea Scrolls, or if they have, they've only done it as a scoffer. That's their problem. But he and most scholars continue this control line in complete willing ignorance. I mean, these writings even record the history of their exile from the temple by the Hasmoneans and Pharisees, and they even tell you on the Day of Atonement they were exiled. Wow, talk about a defiling of the temple and the worship system of the temple. That is about as bad as it gets. Another history completely missing in modern scholarship because, well, they'll read these but then ignore anything not in their nice little box and paradigm. A perpetual bizarro world of willing ignorance, as 2 Peter 3 warned for our time. Let's read some of that now. The Aramaic fragments of Enoch deserve special mention because they appear to attest only 4 out of the 5 books of the Ethiopic Enoch. Notice the scholarly two-step here. Appear to attest. Can you just commit to it there, buddy? I mean, it either does attest or it does not. Can you just say what you're going to say? See, he doesn't even commit to it because that's a standard occult tactic. Level the criticism, and there it sits. Because, just like a stupid blogger does the same kind of thing. You know, they just level it, and then they just leave it sitting there because these idiots don't have the fortitude to test. I mean, it's reckless, it's irresponsible, really gross negligence. And in any other profession, these would be fired, sued, and discredited. But, well, not in the scholarship arena where this is the norm. And that's our problem with modern scholarship. We can't stand that paradigm existing in any realm. Okay, so book 2, that's what we're talking about, the supposedly missing, i.e. chapters 37 through 72. So that's what we're talking about here. 37 to 72 of the book of Enoch. Those are the chapters that are supposedly missing that we're all supposed to throw out. But is this even true? Which describes the heavenly apocalyptic figure called Son of Man. Who could that be? I can't imagine. Messiah only called himself that 85 times. Duh. Okay, so, it's just Messiah in heaven before the flood. I mean, nothing monumental or significant, mind you. Let's just ignore it, because that's what scholars love to do. That's called stupidity and willing ignorance. Not to Pharisees who, well, see, they don't want to believe it. They don't want to hear it, and that's the root of this kind of mumbo-jumbo, because he placates that paradigm. Now, Keep reading. A subject on which New Testament scholars have wasted, a considerable amount of ink. Really wasted? I mean, he can commit to that pretty well, but he can't seem to commit to other things. I mean, that is standard scholarship 101, and it is stupid. Yet this guy can't even research and test what he's saying here, because he could test what he said so far, and he can prove that what he's saying he never should have wrote because it's wrong. It's inexcusable. Without approaching even the vaguest consensus. See, that is the problem in modern scholarship. No paradigm could be so stupid as to say that it has to have consensus in order for people to accept it. I mean, look, the Pharisees within, no matter what denomination, the Jesuits, the Jews, they've infiltrated. All right, they started 2,000 years ago, especially the Jews anyway, the Pharisees. So it really doesn't matter. They outnumber scholars in most of these paradigms. So, and the ones who can actually read and think, not the ones that are just programmed and go along, but the ones that, like Dr. Michael Heiser, on some issues, that man gets it, right? Just not on all. But by demanding consensus, they ensure that their paradigm, never actually gets challenged and certainly doesn't get unraveled, because, see, they'll always have consensus because they have the lion's share of the Pharisees within. Well, it does get challenged here on this channel, and there are many others out there. Very good channels, and not just YouTube, but books that will go right to the heart of the matter and test these things and prove them out. And we will continue to do so. Is missing at Qumran, the second section we're talking about. But is it, though? Now, do we look at Genesis, which is incomplete in Qumran, and then throw out all the sections not represented in fragments? I mean, just get rid of most of Genesis, because most of the Genesis wasn't found in Qumran. Well, that would be stupid, wouldn't it? I mean, no one would actually suggest that, would they? Well, maybe some would, but it would be a dumb suggestion. So that tells you right there that rationale they apply inconsistently, because what they're applying to First Enoch, they don't apply to Genesis, and that's called fraud. It's a different system and a different test, and the reason is they're lying. That's the point. Thus, the Aramaic Enoch, notice he's only focused on this Aramaic Enoch. That's fine. However, there is an Ethiopic, and he will talk about that. And we will cover next, by the way, the chief editor of the Dead Sea Scrolls actually documents that he saw a complete copy of First Enoch in Aramaic in the Dead Sea Scrolls, but it disappeared. Oops. So let's not pretend that's even really truly a valid point, if that's the case. Does not support their speculations any more than do the Greek manuscripts, which are also without chapters 37 through 72 of the Ethiopic Enoch. Okay, I mean, you do realize that the Pharisees in charge of the Dead Sea Scrolls could just as easily, trash anything they found that proved to be from 37 to 72? Would they do that? Absolutely they would. They're frauds. They've already changed the Bible, and they're caught here. That's the thing. This catches them. So meaning that one section, got that, one section of 5, a total 5, in First Enoch, does not have any fragments in representation. Yet again, it appears they actually had a complete copy they made, disappear in order to make this claim. How about that? Because this was being made even in the 50s, according to Giza Vermes, it appears. So, now, let's do this, basically the scholar job for them, because, it seems like this guy can't, and he certainly can't. Well, he should have done so before writing this illiterate accusation, inconsistent with standards even that they would never apply to Genesis. But okay, let's do it. Let's test this. Open your book of First Enoch to chapter 60, verse 1. Now, this is a Noah fragment. There are fragments from the book of Noah, essentially, or writings of Noah, whatever you want to call it, within First Enoch. They are not written by Enoch, but by Noah, as they say. And you see that even in the person that it's written. He identifies himself. This is very appropriate, however. These are both basically pre-flood documents, and they belong in the same book. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, they can be placed in either of the 5 books, though. Understand that, because some will say, oh, well, that's chapter 60, and that's within 37 to 72. Yeah, but this is written by Noah long after Enoch wrote his 5 books, long after he wrote the book of parables. But that's okay. Noah's going to tell us. Now, either way, no matter where you place them, it doesn't matter. They represent a separate book, really. So it doesn't matter where you place them within 1st Enoch. It is chapter 60, but it could be any chapter, really. Now here, Noah says, he learned of the flood from where? Well, in the year 500, in the 7th month, on the 14th day of the month, in the life of Enoch. Yes, Noah's still counting Enoch's years, because Enoch is still living in the Garden of Eden. Now, watch, where did Enoch go if you haven't? He even visits him at the entrance, and Enoch comes out. So this is no mystery at all. And by the way, if someone wants to debate whether Enoch's in the Garden of Eden or not, or whether he died, whatever, watch that video, Where Did Enoch Go? Try to debate that on this video. You will be muted. Our channel, our rules. There you go. In that parable, what parable? I saw how a mighty quaking made the heaven of heavens to quake. He's talking about the flood. And the host of the Most High and the angels, 1,000 thousands and 10,000 times 10,000, were disquieted with a great disquiet. So what parables is he talking about here? Well, he's talking about the book of parables, where Enoch prophesies of the coming flood. Remember, this is before the flood. Noah's writing of this before the flood. He just learned about it coming, and Enoch wrote before that. So that's very clear. However, Noah doesn't leave this to guesswork. Yes, there are other parables in 1st Enoch, somebody would say, and that's fine. You can say that, but you won't be able to in the next slide. So they're not in the 2nd section. Correct. However, Noah nails this down now. Now, chapter 68, verse 1, another Noah fragment here, written by Noah, not Enoch. And after that, my grandfather Enoch, now that's Noah writing, gave me the teaching of all the secrets in the book and in the parables. What parables? He'll tell us exactly. Which had been given to him, Enoch, and he, Enoch, put them together for me, Noah, in the words of the book of the parables. Boom! That's Noah endorsing the 2nd section. Supposedly missing, yet it was not missing in Noah's time. Now, talk about a ridiculous, irresponsible charge from illiterate scholars. Now, Noah quotes the 2nd section of the book of parables of 1st Enoch by name specifically. There's no debate. There's nothing to discuss on this stupid accusation from the inept in scholarship who don't test and don't prove, and it's time to call them out, and they need to stop such illiterate behavior. But of course, you didn't think we'd just leave it there, do you? However, Enoch quotes his own 2nd section, the book of parables, himself in his other books. I mean, what scholar could be so dumb as to overlook that? That'd be a big one to go and look up. Just saying. Pretty bad. He even starts his entire book in section 1 with an endorsement of section 2. You know, the missing book. Oh, but it wasn't missing when he wrote section 1. Think about that. Let's start in chapter 1, verse 2. And he took up his parable and said, Enoch, a righteous man, whose eyes were opened by Elohim, saw the vision of the Holy One in the heavens. Now, what is that? Well, that is an account from chapters 46 through 48. Yes, those fall between chapter 37 and 72. They're in the second book, the missing book that's quoted by the first book. How about that? So there you are, the book of parables, right there in the second verse. He endorses it already in the beginning of the first section. Wow, how can a scholar miss that? So, which the angel showed me, and from them I heard everything, and from them I understood as I saw, but not for this generation, but for a remote one which is for to come. So, now understand this is the first section of 1st Enoch, where Enoch quotes a happening from his second section. He saw Messiah in heaven. That was not missing when he wrote it, and remains endorsed even at the time of the Dead Sea Scrolls we're going to cover. It was there in Noah's days as well. Let's fast forward to the 5th section of 1st Enoch. We saw the first section endorses the second section. Now let's see about the 5th, the Epistle of Enoch, which also cites this same vision of Messiah in heaven. And where is that from? Chapters 46 through 48 of 1st Enoch, known as the second section, which is not missing. That's the book of parables. Maybe learn how to read, scholars. It's really poor. Verse 2. And Enoch said concerning the children of, this is chapter 93. Concerning the children of righteousness, and concerning the elect of the world, and concerning the plant of uprightness, that's Messiah, I will speak these things. Yea, I, Enoch, will declare them unto you, my sons, according to that which appeared to me in the heavenly vision. So not only did Enoch teach this, he taught Methuselah, he taught Lamech, he taught Noah, and this is passed down from generation to generation. So when he wrote this book, this is consistent and continues. Doesn't have a gap through Noah's death, and then it goes through Shem, but we don't know whether Shem used it or not, whether he taught his sons well in that vein. But what we do know is eventually, about 180 or so years after that, Abraham restores it. So there, it's all there. And that's in the book of Jubilees. We've covered that in the first video, I believe, maybe the second, but I think it's the first. When did, he see Messiah in a heavenly vision? Well, we covered that in the last slide there. And which I have known through the word of the holy angels, which is basically him repeating what he said in the last chapter we covered, and have learnt from the heavenly tablets. And Enoch began to recount from the books, the ones that he wrote, and said. So, Section 5 of 1st Enoch also endorses Section 2, the book of parables, which is not missing. It's kind of hard to miss. They aren't even trying. They seek every excuse to censor this book to protect their fraud they committed for the past 2,000 years, as Pharisees already changed the Bible back then. Yes, your KJV is a Pharisee Bible. It's their canon being propagated for the Old Testament, and not the legitimate one from the temple priests, who weren't in the temple anymore at that time, but exiled to Qumran, where we found their library. Now, we know this also because Josephus in 90 AD published a list of Pharisee canon, or Bible, at their time for them, and their missing books found in Qumran in the temple priest canon, the only legitimate Bible canon. We discuss this in the foreword. In fact, we cover this whole thing in the foreword. Read it. Actually, right from the start of this book, in the introduction, not just the foreword, but both. If you read them all in the beginning of the book, it covers this. Basically, the book of Jubilees, which we have fully vetted and proven as Torah. It was kept as, used as, and even labeled as Torah by the exiled temple priests, which they put in writing. It's found right there in Qumran. That's what they say. And that's also Bethabara. Qumran is a new name. It's the biblical Bethabara, according to Joshua, and maps from the oldest of Israel to even 1901. They just forgot it in that 40-year period. Well, gee, wonder how that could happen. So that's where Messiah launched his ministry, endorsing what was found there as Bible canon. So this book is Torah, even quoted in Genesis. Moses basically endorsing his Jubilees book. We cover that in parts 49, as well as Joshua and Samuel. Those quotes they try to attribute that to a modern occult fraud, and it is quoting the book of Jubilees. And it's right there. So there's 3 very early books that are quoting the book of Jubilees, which had to be in existence at that time. Don't care what they date it as. They don't know what they're talking about. They're dating a copy, and they're forgetting that scribes copied these over for thousands of years. I mean, how do you forget that tradition? Well, they only forget that when it comes to Jubilees, Enoch, and those books that aren't in their Pharisee canon. But in the Pharisee canon, they're fine with that scribal tradition. They just forget about it. Just like they forget that Qumran is actually the biblical Bethabara. That's what they do. So read that test for yourself, bookofjubilees.org. Now, Jubilees endorses all 5 books in this passage. We cover, but specifically section 2, the book of parables. When he says he learned wisdom, that is the purpose of that book specifically. Let's see. 1 Enoch 37, verse 1. The second vision which he saw, the vision of wisdom, which Enoch, the son of Jared, the son of, saw. And, verse 2, this is the beginning of the words of wisdom. This is the book of wisdom, and that's what Jubilees is endorsing with that portion. But again, it endorses all 5 books in basically this verse 16 through about 19. So here we are, right there, another endorsement of the second section, which starts right here in chapter 37. Again, Jubilees says, first Enoch preceded it. Noah read it, and so did Methuselah, Lamech, the sons of Noah, and even Abraham. According to Jubilees, so it's right there. We've covered that. But here are direct quotes from the second section, specifically the book of parables by Moses in Jubilees. Jubilees 129 mentions the angel of the presence, and in 2:2 the presences, which are 4 archangels. By the way, according to Enoch chapter 40, this derives from 1 Enoch 42 and 3. Nowhere else. Also, spirits of snow, thunder, lightning, hoarfrost, etc. All originate from, well, 1 Enoch is where they're originally recorded. Even the book of life is first mentioned in 1 Enoch and picked up by Moses in Jubilees. These are 3 very direct references from the second section, the book of parables specifically, which was in circulation at the time of Moses and Noah and Methuselah and Lamech and Enoch. So, Jubilee supports the second section existed in the time of Moses, so it was there for Enoch, to Noah, to Moses. I'm sorry, what's missing? Huh? Learn how to read, scholars, but we're just getting started. We've covered Old Testament references as well in the introduction. Check it out. But this video is not going to be hours long. We're not going to cover everything, but we're going to cover enough that we certainly overwhelm this with detail. There's no doubt. And the point is, there is so much detail. How could they miss it all? Not even one single reference, and they make such a reckless charge. The book of 2nd Esdras, however, at the time of the Qumran community, we prove, is used to interpret prophecy in the Qumran community, so they were using it there at about 100 BC. Now, that's the same time scholars are claiming the second section of 1 Enoch is missing. Is it? Well, watch that video and read our read our book on 2nd Esdras for full research on that, proving that point out as far as its historicity. However, let's take a look. Here are two very direct references, even R.H. Charles noted in 1912, of 2nd Esdras, quoting the second section specifically of 1st Enoch. Ezra picks up and expounds on the Leviathan and Behemoth account of 1st Enoch, according to Charles, and he got that right. And though there are others, this is huge. The earth shall restore those who are asleep. Now, that is significant doctrine that we do find in the New Testament. However, here it is in 2nd Esdras, before the New Testament was written and after even a copy of Enoch was dated in Qumran. Therefore, this derives from 1st Enoch, from the second section, the one that's supposedly missing. No, it's not. That's not a small doctrine. The book of Jude comes right out and identifies Jude as quoting 1st Enoch, as it uses an exact quote right out of the 1st chapter of Enoch even. Oh, I know, you can read lots of things out there that will then claim, well, no, Jude was quoting something else, some other book of Enoch, somewhere else that, well, doesn't exist, but it's an exact quote from 1st Enoch. So that is an illiterate proposition. They're just trying to skirt the issue, and it's very easy to see. However, Jude 1:4 quotes Enoch again, and he quotes Enoch multiple times. This is verbatim when he identifies those who crept in unawares, which is really who we're dealing with in this video. Those are the same ones that are trying to discount 1st Enoch. They were 2,000 years ago, and they still are today. That's their doctrine. And he really picks up a phrase from Enoch as they were denying the only Yahuwah Elohim and Messiah Yahusha, which is a direct quote, really, from 1st Enoch. For they have denied Yahuwah of spirits and his anointed Yahusha. Now, that's 3 times, in fact, in Enoch, so it's significant. And really, you can see even Enoch rebuked Pharisees right there, and we will in this video. Now, Jude was quoting the second section of 1st Enoch, still not missing as of the New Testament in the 1st century. So when was it missing? In the introduction, you will find about a dozen of the quotes of 1st Enoch from Paul actually derive from the second section as well. We're not even going to cover all of those. Acts, same thing. Not a dozen, but certainly some from Acts. Read those. They're in the introduction of this book, 1stenoch.org. It's free in eBook, as is Jubilees. Now, we're not going to make this video that long, but here is Messiah quoting the second section of 1st Enoch in the 1st century. Duh, scholars. Okay, he talks about all judgment is committed unto the Son. That's origin Enoch. In my Father's house are many mansions, a concept first recorded in 1st Enoch. He will put down princes from their thrones. That's Enoch. The Son of Man sitting on the throne of glory. That originates in 1st Enoch. Believers will inherit eternal life. That first appears in 1st Enoch. The Son of Man rules over all. He has all authority. Has been given unto him. We know that scripture, but it originates in 1st Enoch. These all appear in 1st Enoch first, where even a copy is found in archaeology, dated again to at least the 2nd century BC. So no matter what date you use, this was written centuries before the Gospels. Therefore, this serves as its origin largely. Could Messiah come up with something? Well, sure, he could. He is Messiah. He's the son of Yahuwah. After all, there's no doubting that. However, what you will find in his words is he's quoting Scripture throughout. And he's quoting Scripture that's not found in our modern Pharisee Bibles. One last one, and we, again, could go through the entire Old Testament, really, and also all of the New Testament, but we're going to end here, and this is significant. The book of Revelation quotes 1st Enoch many times But just in the second section, the supposed missing section, here's Revelation telling us, no, it was not missing, scholars. Pay attention. Not in the first century, it was not. Therefore, it was not missing in Qumran. Just because you didn't find fragments doesn't mean it was not there. You found 80% of the book, and you're going to throw out 20% because of an illiterate litmus test that you shouldn't be applying, that you don't apply to the books of your Pharisee canon. So, the whole thing is a massive deception. The four presences before the throne, archangels, according to Enoch, it originates there. We will sup with Yahusha in the end times. Well, guess what? Origin, Enoch. Those who sleep not or rest not. That's in Enoch first. Four angels of the winds. That's basically different from the four presences, by the way. These are the angels of the winds. And again, origin, first, Enoch. The elect one shall dwell among them. First, Enoch. Definitely. Elect one is Enoch's term, one of them. He calls Messiah the elect one. He calls him the Son of Man. He calls Yahuwah the head of days, which is the same as Ancient of Days. He's being quoted even in the Old Testament on those because he uses them over and over again. In the New Testament, Daniel only uses Son of Man one time. And then the New Testament comes along, Yahusha comes to the earth in the flesh, and he calls himself the Son of Man something like 85 times. There's really nothing to discuss. That comes in origin from first Enoch. The fountain of righteousness. There you go. Another one from first Enoch. Satan is called the accuser of the brethren. That title originates in first Enoch. He deceiveth them that dwell on the earth. It's talking about the beast in Revelation, and that is prophesied by first Enoch. Angels of the waters, a concept from first Enoch and nowhere else. The sea gives up her dead. That in origin comes from first Enoch. Wow. So let's see if I have this straight now. The first section and the fifth section of the first book of Enoch, according to Enoch, directly quote the book of parables, even by name. The second section that was, missing when Enoch wrote it at that same time, it wasn't missing, and it wasn't missing when Noah quoted it directly as the parable, and then the book of parables of Enoch, referring to the same twice. It's the same story of how he learned of the flood. So it wasn't missing for Noah. It wasn't missing for Moses, who quotes the second section in Jubilees. It wasn't missing throughout the Old Testament, nor in Qumran, who quotes second Esdras, and second Esdras uses first Enoch's book of parables as well. That's 100 BC. The time of the Qumran community that is supposedly missing this second section, yet quoted in other works kept there within first Enoch, and even in application in second Esdras at the same time. Are we seeing a pattern here? It certainly wasn't missing when Messiah himself quoted the book of parables in the Gospels several times, nor when Revelation in the first century also quoted the supposed missing section, which was not missing at all. So, not missing when the rest of Enoch was written before the flood, not missing for Noah before and after the flood, not missing for Moses, not missing for the Old Testament, not missing for the Qumran community, nor the New Testament. I'm sorry, what is this about a missing section? Are they kidding? These idiots can't read, and this is just a few examples of the very obvious that one can learn from merely reading the accounts. They're parading as clowns, not scholars. When they make a dumb assertion such as this, make them prove it. Don't let them get away with just saying stuff like that and leaving it there as a stumbling block for people. Make them prove it out. The same goes for modern science and modern academia. There's a whole lot of reckless, gross negligence out there that is pumping out deception and Pharisee leaven. And that's how we deal with it. we call it out and we expose it, and it dissipates. They will not stand the test. Now, make them test their theories, lest they show themselves illiterate, and they do. In this case, this is one of the most illiterate claims we've ever seen. The second section of 1 Enoch, the book of parables, is not missing from history, period. Now, we hope everyone learned a little something from this video. We have over 400 videos on this channel now, one for every day of the year, many just as profound, with some 50 or so in Tagalog for Filipinos, and now 6 in Spanish to start. We also have been setting up subtitles for 20-plus languages for most of our videos. It lags behind a little bit, so if you don't see that right away when you watch this video, it'll come. It just takes time for it to process. Now, don't forget to like and subscribe and click the bell for notifications of new uploads. Join our email list, as YouTube, well, they just fail to notify often, and we will notify you ourselves at thegodculture.com. Just fill in the pop-up there. We now have alternative platforms for videos, thanks to YouTube censorship, on Rumble, Odyssey, and Utreon, and our podcast is also available for pretty much all of our videos as well. All links in the description box. Friend us on Facebook at The God Culture _space original. If you prefer an alternative, we now have Parler. Link below. We now have 6 books published internationally, being read in over 100 countries, with a new release, the first book of Enoch, which we've been covering, the oldest book in history, and we prove it. Read the introduction. We also have now launched Ophir Philippines coffee table book in the US, Canada, UK, and many overseas markets on Amazon. It is available in hardcover or softcover there. Additionally, we launched the Book of Jubilees, the Torah calendar, with color maps and interior, as so many had requested overseas. We already have that in the Philippines with the color maps, but that too is available on Amazon in hardcover or softcover, as well as the black and white. Those two are in color, if you wish. All books, however, by the way, the Book of Enoch is also available in hardcover, color, soft color, cover, and black and white on Amazon, and just black and white here in the Philippines on Shopee. All books, though, including Solomon's Treasure, are free in eBook. Just go to ophirinstitute.com for all the links for your area for all of our books. More coming soon. We're already working on next projects. But thank you for watching, and thank you for all of your support, and thank you for reading our books, purchasing our books, even downloading the free ebook. We're just glad you're following along. Now, always remember, prove all things for yourself. Yah bless to everyone.